Welcome back to Detroit's Morning Answer. I think this bump music fits perfectly with our next guest. State Representative Jamie Thompson, who served Michigan's 28th House District across Downriver and Monroe County. A nurse by training, she serves as the vice chair of the House Health Policy Committee and also sits on Energy, Families and Veterans, and Regulatory Reform. Secretary Linda McMahon came to Michigan to visit some schools. And I want to get right into that with State Representative Jamie Thompson. Representative, welcome back to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. That might be your walkout song right there.
What was that?
How are you? How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing about as good as the rest of us here in Michigan with the tragic news.
Oh my God! It just broke my heart, and to see that, to know it's been reported that his wife and kids were there, and some are saying they don't know if the story is true or not, but that when the guns went off, that the daughter was so frightened. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I know it's been reported, and you know how stories grow legs and run. I hope they weren't there.
I agree.
But let's talk about the visit with Secretary McMahon. It included tours of Detroit schools, and there were also two roundtables. What was, in your view, the most important takeaway from that visit for Michigan families by the Secretary?
I think the most important takeaway, I was at the roundtable that was it was at a charter school, and what I took away was that she's very interested in how to work with the states and how to remove the government from blocking the individuality of the states and the individuality of the districts, and was really pleased to see the things that we have implemented in our budget. And it shows that there is a world that we can educate our kids and get the government out of what's happening without having to spend more money, because we have the money. We're just not putting it effectively into what's going to help these kids get jobs and stay in our state.
Yeah. Was there any commitments made in those rooms and by the Secretary? And if so, what's the timeline to deliver on those commitments?
Honestly, there were not. There was not a direct timeline that I heard. She was very interested in asking us questions about what particularly we're interested in our schools and in our education. And the majority of what we talked about as a whole was career and technical education, dual enrollment, and then something I mentioned to her that I don't know if other states call it a different name, but I know something that we're really focused on here in Michigan is finding out about social emotional learning, the SEL, and the surveys that are going out to kids. She was appalled when I told her that here in Michigan we have schools that are surveying children as young as 5.
Oh.
Could not believe that those children were filling out questions about their emotions and their personal life and their family's life without their parents knowing what they were filling out, or that could be misinterpreted and falsely diagnose the child, or put something in their permanent record that was going to follow them forever. And that has nothing to do with education.
Well, it was mandated in Illinois, but parents can opt out. It was just signed into law by the governor of Illinois, but parents can opt out now.
See, but that's what I don't understand, because if social emotional learning is part of the curriculum and how you implement every course that you're teaching, how does a parent opt out of that?
Yeah, great question. That is a heck of a question. I mean, as it relates to that, I don't think that's the school's concern. Let the parent and their psychiatrists or whatever deal with that. Not why is the school and government involved in that? And who gets the data? Who gets the data? Who gets that data, Representative?
That was the number one question. That data is absolutely shared, and they announce that and they celebrate the fact that they're gathering the data on our children. The frustrating part is, a lot of parents don't know that this is happening, and unless you're extremely involved or you know how to catch things that are being misrepresented, parents don't know. And I don't think that any parent would be okay with their child. I mean, we're not talking middle school kids. Right. We're talking 5- and 6-year-olds being asked very inappropriate questions about their home life and their emotions, and these are not psychologists. This is not properly administered to kids. And the government getting out of our business is such a huge thing. I made a simple post on Facebook the other day about
I saw it.
A boat club that was just giving books. And I said, how wonderful is that to give books and supplies to a school? And then a gentleman comments, well, if you were doing your job as a politician, we wouldn't need people to be donating to our schools. And I'm like, I'm sorry, at which point did it become the government's responsibility to raise my child,
Come on.
to feed my child,
Yeah.
to be involved in my life? That's not the role of the government.
Yeah, I
They
almost
lost
commented.
it.
I almost commented on that,
You
but I didn't want to
should
blow.
have.
I didn't want to blow up your page.
John, you should have. You should have.
So at this roundtable, were there educators and parents at the table? And if they were, did they raise any specific concerns that you think Lansing should act on immediately?
There was the superintendent, and there was the principal and his wife. I believe they worked together as a team. And this being a charter school, and I apologize, I cannot, at the top of my head, I'm dropping my kids off to school right now. Remember the name of the school that we were at? That's terrible. It is in Wayne County. And they take in kids from Detroit, actually. So they were in, oh my gosh, it's slipping my mind.
Oh, that's okay.
Like the Warren area. But
Okay.
they most of their children come from Detroit, which
Yeah.
tells you that the kids in Detroit are saying, the families are saying, I don't feel my child is getting the education they're needed in Detroit public schools. I'm going to make sure that they get to this charter school that isn't even located in Detroit.
Yeah.
And their main concern was that they were thrilled with our budget that allowed them to use their dollars and not require them to spend items in particular on these line items in these categories. This guy loved it.
Wow.
He says it's exactly what we want. We know what our kids need. We don't want to be told by the government. These kids are unique to the community. Our needs are different than every other district. They had no problem. And I said, well, you really need to get on the phone and start talking to other superintendents because
Yeah.
they are scared to death that they're going to be held accountable for the money that they're given. And that's their big argument. We don't want the responsibility of this money and having to say where it's spent. Because why? Because then you're accountable for the education of our children.
Yeah. Wow. You know, I'm sorry, did transportation, building safety, or any special education come up during your conversations with the secretary?
You know, the majority of it did not at this conversation. I can say that I have had that conversation with other districts, such as the city of Taylor.
Yeah.
I was on their board meeting maybe 2 weeks ago. They are very concerned about their infrastructure and the failing of their schools' buildings. They're the outdated infrastructure. They have no strong HVAC system that would put through AC, for example.
Uh-huh.
So in 2025, the schools in Taylor don't have AC for their kids. And now they're wondering and scrambling how they're going to get the dollars to do that.
Yeah.
One of my questions was, what did you do with your COVID money?
Wow.
That was exactly intended to update HVAC and ventilation in the schools. You had millions of dollars. Now, to his defense, the current superintendent was not there when that money was allocated.
Yeah.
So nobody really knows what that got spent on. But it definitely did get spent on the renovation. And that's what I brought up because we had a school safety package in the House that passed the House with bipartisan support. It's still sitting in the Senate. And that not only addressed the infrastructure, but it addressed the safety. It addressed having continuity of verbiage that law enforcement agents and teachers and all districts across the state of Michigan would use the same verbiage to make sure that should something happen that would harm or injure our children, everything would run smoothly. A dedicated resource officer, a dedicated mental health director, everything that came out of the Oxford shooting was implemented, and those mistakes and those failures was implemented into legislation, and it's sitting in the Senate, and the Democrats refuse to vote on it. But you tell me that they're care about our kids' safety.
Wow. You know, Detroit has one of the highest rates of chronic absenteeism in the state. You know, were there any solutions? What do you think? How do you solve that problem as it relates to absenteeism in the schools in Detroit?
I firmly believe that parents need to be held accountable, and if there are barriers to their children getting to school, that they are given the resources to help them. That doesn't mean the government is controlling their life. It means that even protective services is involved. We heard that came out of oversight when they were hammering on Director Elizabeth Hertel about her failures in the department.
Mm-hmm.
And there were children that were homeless and living in tents, and the stories would just blow your mind. Kids were not in school, never registered for school. And her response to that, when she's in charge of a department with a $3 billion budget to make sure our kids aren't neglected, that they're going to school, she said they have a right to be homeless and they have a right to be poor. And, you know, looking at the poverty, you know, that's you know, it blows my mind that there are parents that are asking for help.
Yeah.
The holding parents accountable, holding children accountable. You know, back in our day, you were so ashamed, especially, you know, all of us skipped school in high school, but not elementary school, not middle school. I mean, if these parents need the help, if they need the help with transportation, if they need the help with whatever their barrier is, there is more than enough money and more than enough people that care about these kids.
Well, Representative, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, I didn't skip it during middle K through 8 because that was when I got that hot meal, those hot donuts. I had a lunch teacher that loved me. I mean, my mom was a crack addict, so when I went to school to eat, you know, that was.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, my mother was a crack addict from the time I was about 6, 7 till I was about 15, 16 years old. She's a pastor, ordained pastor now, and living the good life for God now. So I mean, trust me, it was something growing up. But you co-sponsored House Bill 4158 on student assessment. How does that bill connect with what you saw in Detroit classrooms?
Well, it looks at testing our kids completely different than we've been doing, and it focuses on getting the results back to the teachers and to the district that year, opposed to the following year when it's too late. They've already moved on to the next grade. They already have a new teacher. It's very simple. And when we look at our test scores across the state of Michigan and how we continue to be in the bottom, we just got a new update and we didn't even move the needle. Why wouldn't we look at things differently and how the kids are taught and bringing that testing to a level that we get real-time results on where they're at and where they need help? There's still not been a focus on reading, writing, and math. There is still this focus on emotional, what's going on in your home, how can we make sure everyone gets a trophy, you know, does the color blue make you feel happy or sad? I mean, until we got that and we focus on, I'm going to share a story with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually talked to Secretary McMahon. I said, this year has been very new for me because, as you know, when we lost our daughter 4 years ago and we gained guardianship of our grandchildren, we put them into a parochial school, not only because of what was going on in public schools at the time with the masking. This was in 2021, but more because I wanted them in a small classroom. That was something else we talked about, was the classroom sizes are egregious.
Yeah. A
small classroom where they had the love and support and could lean on their faith to deal with losing their mom and then their dad taking off on them.
Wow.
With the economy the way it is, they were there for 3 years. This year, my husband and I could not make it work anymore. It broke my heart. It still breaks my heart. So I had to put them in public schools.
Wow.
And my 11-year-old grandson came home yesterday, and he said, Grammy, we have books in our classroom that we can read, and I chose a book. And as soon as I started reading it, I put it back. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, it was a story about who was Harvey Milk.
Oh, boy.
And it was about the first gay politician and how he fought for gay rights and how he was the one that pushed for pride flags. And then when it said he was gay, he goes, I know what that meant. But in parentheses, it said he was attracted to men. He goes, so I put that back. And I thought, oh gosh, here we go. Here we go. You know, and then you think, okay, is that wrong? Is it wrong? That's part of history. Okay, that's wonderful. But 5th grade, you're not even in middle school yet.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So I messaged the teacher, and I said, you know, Bentley came home upset. He's very strong in his faith. You know that because when in the About Me section that he filled out his first day of school, when asked what his favorite book was, he said the Bible.
Wow.
Bentley, based on his faith and his moral compass, he doesn't want to read about men having sex with men.
Right. Wow. I mean, we've come to that point where kids are having to. This is part of their education, and I personally that is another thing that the schools should have no part in sexuality. That's just me. Maybe my wife teaches my girls. I taught my son a lot about it, and I tell my girls what to look for, what not to look for. It's just insane what's happening to our and that's what I love about Secretary McMahon, because she's not playing that woke ideology, right?
No. And that's the thing. So then the question became, do they lose funding? Like, what part of the funding are schools losing? Because Trump made it very clear there's two genders. Yeah. There's no DEI. There's no critical race theory. Now, when it comes to just being gay and attracted to the same sex, I don't believe that order specified anything with that. And honestly, nobody cares, right? Like, I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care who you're married to. But in fifth grade, at 11 years old, I just want him to be learning math and learning a career. I don't think that those types of books need to be in there. And it was a classroom book. So my question was it a classroom book or a library book? Just to see what the response was. Who approved those books? How do we know? And if there's that, what more is there?
Yeah.
And this is a school district that I spoke with Moms for Liberty about. And I know you met some of the gals at one of my events. Mm-hmm. They said they were shocked because they had never seen anything in Gibraltar schools. And I was like, did God put my son there for a reason? Because Bentley even told me, within being at the school for a week, he's like, Grammy, can we go back to our other school? Mm. And I'm like, Bentley, that tuition for the 3 kids is $2,000 a month.
Wow.
I said, we just can't do it. I wish I was trying everything I possibly can. You're breaking my heart.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying so hard, Bentley. I feel terrible. He's like, there's just too many kids in the class. I can't focus. Nobody there wants to learn. They're really loud. They don't listen to the teacher. Yeah. And that's not fair to the teachers. So that's something we talked about with Secretary Mann. How do we get these classrooms smaller and hire more teachers?
Right.
I mean, 32 kids in a class of 10 and 11-year-olds with one teacher.
Because she talked about you guys talked about the teacher shortage too, correct? And how we can how that can be buffed up and add more teachers, right? What was that conversation like?
Yes, very much. It was more about removing the barriers and the regulations on getting their teaching license and actually paying student teachers and cutting all the red tape of things that's preventing them from going into the career to begin with.
Yeah. Wow. Now,
on a federal level, on a state level, across the board.
Yeah. Now, you talked about your grandchild, and I hate to even bring it up, but Charlie Kirk, where were you? What was your reaction when you had heard the news?
Just gutted.
Yeah.
The only response I could come up with is just gutted. You know, we were sitting in the chamber. I was going back through the timeline, and I know the report said it was about 12:20 that he was shot. Looking back, we were in session in Lansing. Our caucus started at 1:30. Yeah. So we probably didn't come out of chamber till 2:30. We started voting on some bills. Actually, the bill we were voting on when they closed session, Alicia St. Germain had a bill that would increase the penalties for protesters blocking traffic and causing injuries to people. And, you know, that the Dems gave their floor speech, how that was unconstitutional.
Yeah, no.
And then my best gal, St. Germain, came up and said, you know, nothing about free speech says that you can block a road so someone can't get to work and jump on their car. And, you know, these fines need to be higher to push people to accountability. Stand on the side. That's not peaceful protesting.
Yeah, I agree. So and I love that.
As soon as that, we didn't even get to vote on it. I know my seatmate, Representative Linting, said, oh, my God, Charlie Kirk got shot. That was the first person that told me. And then Representative Dana came up and showed us the video of the shooting. It shook Representative Linting to her core. Representative Linting worked for Turning Point USA before she came in the legislature. She's 23 years old. She just was so shaken by it, and we all were. And then you started seeing people running like through the chamber, and you're like, oh my, you're thinking, and then the shutters shut, and we're like, what is going on?
Yeah. Hey,
And
Representative.
then,
Representative, I'm sorry. We got 20 seconds left. I can talk to you. I can talk to you for hours.
I know. I get on the phone with you, and I'm like, I'm not on the radio. I'm just talking to my voice.
Representative Jamie Thompson, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Laura Perry's coming up next week, so I'll be interviewing her next week. So I'll let you know. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Paul, thank you. Riley, thank you. Guys, it's Friday. We'll see you Saturday. Black and White Radio.